A major move that happened this offseason to San Francisco is they lost their 2-year defensive coordinator in DeMeco Ryans, and they look to make a change at their defensive coordinator spot, bringing in Steve Wilks. And Steve Wilks is a much more aggressive coordinator than they had in their previous two in DeMeco Ryans and Robert Saleh. Wilks focuses a lot more on blitzes, and even in his press conference said that he would be looking to blitz a lot more. So if the Niners plan to run a whole lot more blitzes, they also suspect to be in a lot more press man coverage, which is something Steve Wilks excels in. If you guys didn't know, Steve Wilks is one of the best defensive coordinators, but not just that, one of the best secondary coaches across the entire NFL. And while the Niners defense has been elite, the one susceptible part of their defense had to be the secondary. So bringing in a defensive coach that has a specialty in secondary play is a big move for the Niners, and I expect a jump in their productivity there. Also, increasing the blitzes will force the quarterback to make quicker decisions in tighter coverages, hopefully resulting in more interceptions for the Niners. Under Steve Wilks, it seems that the Niners are going to be much more aggressive on the defensive side of the ball, incorporating a whole lot more blitzes and man coverages. So while these may increase more big plays, they may also change the players that are on the field for the Niners. I mean, the Niners are already going through a lot of changes on the defensive side of the ball. The first and big addition is the defensive tackle, Javon Hargrave. And while that's the defensive line, the secondary's also changed a lot, with Jimmy Ward leaving to the Houston Texans during free agency, so the Niners most likely will start Isaiah Oliver in the slot. But what if that's not the only change the Niners are going to do in the secondary this offseason? And I don't think it's that far-fetched, considering Steve Wilks has already brought in a bunch of secondary guys. I mentioned Isaiah Oliver, but also through the draft, they brought in a corner in Darrell Luter Jr., who fits exactly what Steve Wilks wants to run. More on him in a little bit. But they also picked up Jair Brown, the safety out of Penn State, who could really push Tashaun Gipson for that starting safety job. The Niners did see great production out of Gipson last year, so it wouldn't be the end of the world seeing Gipson start another year and Jair Brown developing on the bench, much like Talanoa Hufanga did. But there's another player that may push a starter out of the role, and I think that's Darrell Luter Jr. I think in the secondary, the Niners' weakness has probably been Lenoir, and while he did have an uptick in production during the playoffs, during the regular season, Lenoir struggled at times. And with the Niners switching over to more press, man coverage corners, it's going to be challenging for Lenoir to have success. A big reason for that is how small he is. He's only 5'10", and his arm length is 30 inches, 31 almost. But it makes it extremely hard for a corner to get up and press a wide receiver with such short arms. In comparison, this year the Niners brought in Darrell Luter Jr., and his arm length is almost 33 inches at 32 3/8 inches. Luter also made plays on the ball throughout his college career at South Alabama, and what really stood out is his playing style. He's phenomenal in press man coverage, and it looks like that's what the Niners are trying to go to in their secondary. So if Luter's able to outperform Lenoir during this training camp, it could be possible that he overthrows Lenoir for the starting job. And as I mentioned, Steve Wilks ultimately had a huge hand in selecting Darrell Luter Jr., who fits the mold of the corners that he's been working with throughout his career. And I expect that he'll be able to get the most out of Luter Jr. Another thing to mention is that Luter Jr. so far as a pro has seemed, as he's been billed, he was able to shut down essentially every single wide receiver in rookie minicamp without even being able to touch them. I think we should see even a better coverage from him once he's able to actually get his hands on the wide receiver at the line of scrimmage. I wouldn't be surprised if Darrell Luter Jr. is the starting cornerback week 1 for the Niners, but those are just my thoughts on Steve Wilks revamping the secondary. And I'd love to hear your thoughts. Who do you think is going to start opposite of Charvarius Ward week 1?